I want to thank you for joining me today. And before we get started, as always, all messages that are released on this channel are my truth. And that is exactly what it is and what it always will be. And that is my truth. Now, my truth consists of a bunch of experiences that I gained clarity from, which ultimately took me back to the real me, which is truth. Now, when I try to convince you that my truth is the gospel, however, my truth is the gospel for me. That does not make it the gospel for you, nor will I ever try to make it the gospel for you. By me being on this platform, I am simply placing breadcrumbs on a path that I've already walked. Now, you find yourself on a similar path and you resonate with said breadcrumbs and you say, you know what, I like that. I want to follow that. And that's cool. If not, that is cool as well. My purpose is to assist those who are ready to get out of their own way. So let's get right into it. All right, so I wanted to hop on, try and give another alternative way of seeing two scriptures. And the two scriptures that I am referring to are Mark 4:35 and Exodus 14:21 through 22. Now, both of these scriptures are talking about water, right? And in Mark 4:35 is when this is when Jesus is basically in the boat with his disciples, and he's trying to tell them, hey, let's go ahead and cross the river and go to the other side, right? And of course, you know how that story goes. They get in the boat and the water becomes choppy and they wake up Jesus, say, hey, Jesus, the water's choppy. What's going on? We're going to die. Don't you want us? We're going to drown. And Jesus calmed the sea, right? Then we got Exodus, where Moses is leading the people away from the Pharaoh, right? And now he's being chased down by the army. In order for him to escape, he has to part the sea and cross and get to the other side. Now, both of these stories, I want you to look at as, let's look at the river as symbolizing the transition between consciousness, because you're leaving one area that seems chaotic and you're crossing over to the other side. So if we're looking at this from your brain perspective, your left brain versus your right brain, right? So if you're operating from your logical mind, which is your left brain, you're going to be completely different when you operate from your right mind, which is more so your creative, your spiritual mind, right? So if you're trapped in the logical mind, which most people are, it's very easy to get caught up in fear and being stuck in analysis paralysis and uncertainty, because that's the mind. You can get boxed in easily when you're dealing with the mind. While being on the other side of that river is going to represent you stepping into trust, into faith, into inner peace. So you have two totally different things going on each side of the river. It's basically you crossing that river to get to that. And the water is representing the roughness of the seas, because when you're trying to cross that water, trust and believe it is going to get rocky. You know, your boat is going to shake and it's going to be scary on those seas. And just like the disciples, if you do not have that trust, that faith, you're going to get scared. And if it was up to them, they would have turned around, right? So you must have that trust and that faith, because if you just staying with your logical mind, oh, this water's too, we'll never make it across. Let's go and turn back around. You're never, if you're not going to have that faith, you're never going to be able to pass through those choppy seas. Because if everything that you want is on the other side of what you're trying to avoid. Just like in the movie, what was the movie with Jim Carrey? Truman Show. If he would have not crossed those seas, this flies up perfectly. If he did not get in that boat and he had a fear of water, of drowning, if he did not cross that sea to get to the other side, he would have never escaped his reality. Cross and get to the other side. So if we look at Mark 4:35, Jesus says, let's go over to the other side of the river, right? Exodus 14:21, God commands Moses to part the sea, get to the other side. As I said, both are using crossing to evade danger. Moses is fleeing from the army, and Jesus is basically just trying to get over to the other side to escape the choppy water so they don't drown. Now, as I said, the water is your resistance, and you're going to encounter that resistance. But remain faithful in what you're trying to accomplish. It's all about your intentions. If your intentions are pure, you will be provided for. If Jesus did not have the faith to calm the waters, they would have drowned. If Moses didn't have the faith that he could part the waters, they would have been captured. You will experience resistance. Trust on that. You're going to get resistance. Why is this? Because the system that you've been feeding your entire life is ran off of your energy, right? If you're stuck in your mind and you're all about fear and this, that, and the other, oh man, what about this? What about you're feeding the system because that's fear. And don't forget, what did God say? He did not give you the spirit of fear because it's a lower vibration. So if you're going to be using that vibration, you're feeding the system. That's what it's about. But when you cross that water and you operate from the right mind, it feeds you. So what is crossing the water? So crossing the water is going to look like this. On the left side is your logical mind. On the right side is your creative, your spiritual mind. So when you're crossing, you're leaving logic to go over to faith. You're leaving knowledge to go over to wisdom. You're leaving control to go over to trust. You're leaving fear to go over to peace. You're leaving mind to go over to operating from spirit. You're leaving thinking. Now you're operating in knowing. You're leaving reason. Now you're using your intuition. You see, all these different things are what you're going to encounter on those rough, choppy seas. But trust and believe, if you remain faithful, you will cross safely. So I ask you, do you have enough faith to come to the other side? And I'm going to leave it there. And as always, if you got anything out of this message, as usual, like, subscribe, and I will definitely check you in the next one.